Madam President.
The junior senator from Florida.
Madam President, nearly 5 years ago, our state, nation, the city of Orlando, and Hispanic and LGBTQ communities were attacked, and 49 innocent and beautiful lives were lost. It was an evil act, an act of terrorism designed to divide us as a nation and strike fear in our hearts and minds. But instead, we came together, we supported each other, and we persevered. We proved to the world what we in Florida already knew. Floridians are resilient. The days I spent in Orlando following the shooting will always be with me. I talked to many parents who lost their children. I went to funerals and wakes. I sat in hospital rooms. As a father and a grandfather, it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. It was heartbreaking. But in this horribly dark time, the selfless courage of so many, from community members to law enforcement to healthcare workers, provided a sense of hope. This incredible strength, love, and bravery lifted up Orlando and the state of Florida and helped us begin to rebuild. This week, on the 5th anniversary of this unthinkable tragedy, the state of Florida comes together to honor the lives lost too soon. And we vow to always stand up and fight against evil and hatred in this world. Now I yield the floor to my colleague from Florida, Senator Rubio.
I think most Americans remember that horrifying day 5 years ago. I certainly do. I remember it was a morning and I started getting text messages that something horrifying had happened in our home state. As we turned on the news, we could see that it had already been the deadliest attack on American soil since September 11th of 2001. And the full horror of that day, of that night, came into focus as I remember jumping in my truck and driving the 3 hours to be on the scene. And it would be a few more days or a few more hours before we learned that it was an attack that was inspired by an ideology of hatred, by an individual inspired by, who had pledged allegiance to, a foreign terrorist organization. And in that context, appeared there on that evening. It was an evening of tragedy. It was, as Senator Scott mentioned, it was Latin night at the Pulse Nightclub. This was a well-known nightclub in the LGBTQ community in Central Florida. And one would think no one should ever be, last thing someone's worried about when they go out for a night with their friends is that they're going to be attacked by a radical jihadist terrorist in the United States. We had seen similar attacks in London and France. And the realization that that could happen in Florida, just down the street from a small business furniture store whose owners I had gotten to know, shook everyone, shook me. Like most terrorist attacks, it sought not only to bring death, but division and to fear, to terrorize. And clearly there was a tremendous amount of pain that 5 years later is still there. But from it, what also occurred was that it brought Floridians together, particularly those in Central Florida, first hand in hand to grieve, and then to preserve the memory of those whose lives were lost. The outpouring of love and support came not only from Florida, but from Americans from all across the United States who shared in our grief and drew inspiration from the state's resilience. 5 years later, the process of mourning continues, the process of remembrance continues, but so too is Orlando as united as it was 5 years ago. It's a reminder to us that even with all the challenges and threats we face, the threat of a radical, hateful ideology that can inspire people living here to take such horrifying actions is something that we should remain vigilant about. And I want to thank my colleague, Senator Scott, for allowing me to partner with him on this resolution to remember not just that tragic day and to support the National Pulse Memorial, but also to extend our continued condolences to those who suffered so greatly on that evening, and to remind a nation of how we must remain vigilant against those who seek to terrorize us.
Mr. President, I want to thank my colleague from Florida for participating in this with me. It was a devastating day 5 years ago for all of us in Florida and around the nation. Today, I'm requesting all my colleagues join us to honor the memory of the 49 lives lost and come together to say that our nation will always stand against hate and evil in this world. I will be asking the Senate to pass a resolution honoring the memory of the victims of the heinous attack at the Pulse Nightclub, co-sponsored by my colleague from Florida, Senator Rubio, and legislation designated the location of Pulse Nightclub in Orlando as the National Pulse Memorial to serve as a tribute to the victims and a reminder for us to always stand for love and kindness over hate and evil in this world, which is also co-sponsored by my colleague from Florida, Senator Rubio, and my colleague from California, Senator Padilla. I hope my colleagues join us in the effort today. As if in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Energy and Natural Resources be discharged from further consideration of Senate 1605 and the Senate proceed to its immediate consideration.
Clerk will report.
S 1605, a bill to designate the National Pulse Memorial located at 1912 South Orange Avenue in Orlando, Florida, and for other purposes.
Without objection.